heeded my words not, did you? Pass on what you have learned. Strength, mastery, but weakness, folly, failure also. Yes, failure most of all. The greatest teacher failure is. We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters.
For better or worse, I am a teacher, and this whole scene hit me when watching it for the first time. I teach middle and high school English, mostly. I've been working at it for 3 years now, but the longer I teach, the more I realize that I'm the one learning. Right now, the lesson I'm learning is that
the greatest teacher failure is.
Star Wars is a story of failure. Failure of the Jedi to keep the peace in a failing republic. Failure of Obi-Wan to keep his student from turning to the dark side. Failure of Luke Skywalker to keep his student from turning to the dark side. We can even take it a step further and look at the creation of the saga. George Lucas' failure to meet some fans' expectations with the prequels. Disney's failure to meet some fans' expectations with the sequels. Failure isn't just in Star Wars, it's in our lives too. And even though my personal failure isn't leading to the loss of freedom in the galaxy, failure can be debilitating and discouraging, and it can change your life forever. Luke Skywalker took the shame and consequence that his failure wrought, and he abandoned everything he had lived his life for. His failure left him without a purpose, because the one thing he'd been trying to do, raise up the next generation of Jedi, was no longer an option. We can watch leader after leader fail and lose their job and never recover. Some of these people are evil, and they only feel remorse now that they've been caught. But some of these people made mistakes and feel that shame and are living with the consequence. But what are you supposed to do after that? In Star Wars, the easiest example of failure to look at is someone who failed their students, exiled themselves, and gave up all hope for the Jedi of the future. And I'm talking about Yoda.
My little green friend.
After hundreds of years leading the Jedi and keeping peace in the Republic, Yoda crawls into the back of a speeder and delivers a wonderful anastrophe and a massive understatement.
Into exile I must go. Failed I have.
This isn't the first time the Jedi have realized their folly. Yoda and Mace Windu lay this out clearly in Episode 2.
Blind we are, if creation of this clone army we could not see.
I think it is time we inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force is diminished.
Wait a minute. I don't remember this happening in the movie. When did the Jedi admit that they were wrong? Maybe it's because Attack of the Clones is the movie I've seen the least? Oh no, sorry. Yoda responds with another anastrophe and boundless wisdom.
Only the Dark Lord of the Sith knows of our weakness. If informed the Senate is, multiply our adversaries will.
So that brings us back to him sitting in a speeder, kicking himself for not having done anything sooner. Now I can try to analyze why the Jedi failed, but that's what the prequels were for. And from watching the prequels, we see that the legacy of the Jedi is a failure.
At the height of their powers, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise, create the Empire, and wipe them out. It was a Jedi Master who was responsible for the training and creation of Darth Vader.
That is why Yoda went into exile. After a failure of this magnitude, there was nothing that Yoda could do to fix it. The only thing he could do was wait. The nature of the Force is a bit complicated, and seems to be recontextualized with every bit of Star Wars content that comes out. I don't know what Yoda knew about the prophecy of the Chosen One bringing balance to the Force, and what he meant by, "No, there is another." But I do know that he agreed to train Luke, and it ultimately helped to bring balance to the Force. Or at least an end to the Emperor. Eventually. In his exile and through teaching Luke, we see that he has learned from his mistakes. He trains Luke to use the Force, and he trains him to be cautious, but he lets Luke go. He lets Luke carve his own path to defeat the Emperor and become the Jedi he was born to be. Yoda passes on what he learned to Luke, and it takes a few years for it to stick. But Luke is eventually able to overcome his mistakes too. He is able to grow beyond them, and leads his students to do the same. I'm a teacher, as I'm sure I've mentioned a few times already, and 5 days a week I stand up in front of 10 to 15 human beings and I make 100 mistakes. Some of them are silly, like calling someone the wrong name because they're sitting in the wrong seat. Some of them are more important, like failing to reach out to someone who's struggling until it feels like it's too late. or in not following the processes and filling out the paperwork and all the not teaching things that I never seem to be good at. But I'm learning the lesson that Star Wars is trying to teach. It's to take the shame and consequence and learn from it. It's to grow beyond not just the mistakes of our teachers and mentors, but of our own mistakes as well. I've been a teacher for 3 years now, and it's a very interesting job, because I often feel like I stumbled into it, and in some ways I feel like I'm still stumbling. But I can only do what my teachers did for me in the past. Bring my students as far as I can, and let them grow beyond that point. We are the ones they grow beyond. That is the burden of all masters, those of us imparting anything to people around us. They leave us behind, and they become something new. This is something that all masters in Star Wars had to learn, even when it felt like they had failed. Even the greatest teachers can turn to their list of mistakes and allow that to discourage them like Luke did. But this is the lesson. The greatest teacher failure is, and we would do well to learn and grow beyond it.